the beast, Adam and Eve were given the plan of salvation. It was through their mouth that they were to give it to the children. Cain says, "This day ye have cursed me from the face of the earth." And we know Cain didn't go to the moon, did he? Cain didn't go to Saturn or Pluto. But what this means was the only true revelation of God in the earth, the true image of God, taken from the earth, was who? Adam and Eve. They were the face of the earth. And God offered Cain salvation. And Cain could still be saved, but what did he do? He separated himself from the spirit of prophecy. His parents. He went off to a place, started his own thing. So seeing that he couldn't hear the message of truth through his mother and his father, he couldn't repent. For if he sinned willingly after coming to the knowledge of the truth, there's no more sacrifice for sins. But if there's a looking, the day of judgment. You see? So, that's the only unpardonable sin against the Holy Ghost, against truth, and against the messengers of God. Because they may be erring, they have to get on their knees too and pray, because they'll preach messages that they themselves break. And they say, "Woe is me, who can deliver me from this body of sin and death?" Paul says, "For that which I would do, I do not." But this is what allows us to have less confidence in the flesh, even in our flesh, and more confidence in a sin-pardoning Redeemer. It should give us a desire to study more of the Scriptures about the sanctuary and the spirit of prophecy. So, God told Cain, "Cain, why art thou wroth?" Cain was experiencing something he had never experienced before. You see? Through the grace of God, Adam and Eve were not made to feel the condemnation of breaking the law. You see, because God had promised the Messiah to come, who would bear all the guilt of the sins of the world. You see? So Cain and Abel were able to feel the beautiful sunshine and the presence of the holy angels in their hearts. They were able to be content and happy until Cain disobeyed God's orders and commands. God tried to check Cain, because God knew what Cain was going to do. And God says, "Cain, why art thou wroth?" In other words, Cain, consider what you're experiencing. This isn't a pleasant feeling, is it? If thou doest well, or my will, should not thou also be accepted? In Genesis, the rendering says, "Lift it up." Cain was experiencing a crisis. He was losing the spirit. He was losing that happiness and joy that he had in his first Christian experience. You see? But he wasn't willing to be obedient. So God asked Cain, "Cain, why art thou wroth? If thou doest well, or what I've asked you to do, nothing more, nothing less, should not thou also be accepted or lifted up? But Cain, if thou doest not well, my will, sin lieth at the door, and thou shalt rule over him, and his desire shall be unto thee." Now these scriptures, we've read them over and over in the King James and in the Hebrew renderings. "Thou shalt rule over him, and his desire shall be unto thee." But what do they mean? History reveals it clear enough. Ever since Cain exhibition his mighty might as being a man, he rose up in power, and he took the life of his brother Abel. I mean, it was a very drastic experience. Killing of the animal sacrifices was supposed to have been very drastic. Sister White tells us that when Adam first saw the first leaf fall off the tree, he mourned for the leaf as we would mourn for our own sons. Death was horrifying to him. And to take a loving, living lamb that didn't bleed or anything, just laid there in its innocence, and you having to kill it and to see the emotions the lamb went through when it realized that it was being slaughtered, that was supposed to have made Adam and Eve realize the penalty and what it is really to sin. But Cain and Abel didn't consider. Abel did, and Cain didn't consider. So Cain finally fulfilled God's warning, and Cain fulfilled prophecy, and Cain rose up and killed Abel, because Abel stood up for the truth. You see? Now, ever since, we as men have been afraid. When I was in the world, I didn't think I was afraid of anything. I was a whole lot heavier. I used to, work out and box and stuff, and I wanted to fight and stuff like that. But I didn't think I was afraid of anybody. But I was, because otherwise I wouldn't have been doing so many push-ups and shadow boxing and lifting weights and all that. You see? I wouldn't have been watching behind my back every time I turned around. The Abels, the Christian men of today, we walk down the road and sometimes we're afraid to pass out a little piece of literature. You know why? Afraid of what these big macho worldly men might do. I was out one day evangelizing the city. I went all out with power, you see. I was going to really let Waco know the truth. And I walked up to a man who was getting out of his pickup, and he turned around, and he had a pistol strapped on his side, and he had shotguns in his truck, and he had some more firearms. He must have been a gun collector. And all of a sudden I had this little funny feeling in my heart. You know, it went right down into my stomach. And I said, well, I'm going to pass that to him anyway, you know. He kind of reminded me of my dad. My dad's not a believer. He's a very strict, stern man, you see. He'll tell you what he thinks about you. And I said, sir, I'd like you to investigate something here. What is it? I don't need that. I said, well, sir, you really, and all of a sudden he interrupted. He says, now look here, boy, I'm a God-fearing man, but I don't need none of that stuff. And then he said words that God-fearing men don't say. And I turned and almost ran off. I was scared to death of him, because it looked like he was fixing to point one of his guns at me. And I heard Satan laughing at me. Paul says that if you show fear, it's a certain symbol for the wicked of your perdition. You see? And so it made me realize I just felt like the biggest hypocrite. And I have to admit on my prayers at night, God, I'm scared to death. When I go to the general conference meetings and stuff, and we go out and get literature, I'm a chicken. That's why it's got wings of a fowl, bird of prey, you see. A bird to be preyed upon, excuse me. And so this is the condition of God's people today. And without the Spirit of God, we're going to remain chickens. You see? Now, in the next symbolism, we have the situation of the world. Rome. Rome was very iron-like. They were monster men. But what does Genesis chapter 6 tell us? That men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. They were mighty men, men of renown, because the sons of God saw the daughters of men. They were fair. We learned today with the spirit of prophecy that the sons of God stayed up in the hills, and you see, I can't use the word mountains because there weren't mountains then, but they were health reformers. The women and the men worked together. You see, women got calluses too, and they were there to be punished, but they could see the garden, and they could, one of these days, going to get back to favor with God. And if children were born to them, they were strong and healthy. They didn't eat meat. They ate healthy foods. They were restricted. They were good-looking, strong people. And the sons of Cain, they degraded themselves. They ate things they shouldn't have eaten. They were gluttons, and they became very weak people. Very weak people. Over just a period of 1,000, 1,500 years or so. You see, very weak people. Now, but these young people, looking down on the cities of the children of men, they went down to Carmel, and what did they see? You see, in Cain's kingdom, there's not much a young lady can do with men like Cain and his nature, because you'll find it was Lamech, and he had 2 wives. The reason why he had 2 wives is because, well, in Cain's nature, you go killing somebody, you're going to misbalance nature. Seth had to be risen up as far as Adam's descendancy because he married Abel's wife. You see? To make everything perfect again and balanced again. But in Cain's descendancy, when they got mad at one another, the men killed the men, and that left an extra woman. You see? So Lamech, Seth was born like Adam, the Bible said, and his spitting name was Adam masculine. And he wasn't divided, but his purpose was to take the wife of Abel. You see? So there'd be a balance. That's why in the law, a brother, if the brother died and his wife and him, you see, the law all reveals this also. So, Adam was male, female, male, female, male, female, male, female. Everything perfect, you see. It was nice to have a perfect helpmate. That was the kingdom of God, you see. But in the children of Cain, they were down there killing one another and stuff like that and not doing right. And see, women aren't allowed in Cain's kingdom to go out and to be in the fields and stuff because an evil man come along and rape her. You see? So the men had become mighty and strong, and they would, Sister White says in special testimonies, Spirit of Prophecy writings, she says that they would, when they decided they wanted a girl, they'd go kill the husband. You see, it was just that bad. And so these girls were made to be sex pots. Cain's descendants, they had commerce, and they had where, all the men didn't have to work in the fields and stuff like that. And they made instruments and things like this, cunning inventions, and they built cities and stuff. And so a lot of the girls weren't even allowed to work. They were made to look beautiful for sexual pleasure, you see. So the sons of God looked down and went and intermingled with the children, the children of the descendants of Adam and Eve, and they saw these girls, and they weren't like their girls. Their girls were beautiful, yes, but these girls were delicate, and their hands weren't rough, and, their feet didn't have calluses from working in the fields and all that. And one thing they experienced, just like the Branch kids are experiencing today, our Branch children have been vegetarians all their life, and they used to call them veggies at school all the time. You see, and it really gave them a hard time. But now, even the kids that aren't even athletic excel the kids at public school in athletics. Have you ever met Joel, Perry's children? Sam is praised at school. For his age, he's the strongest kid, he's the fastest kid, and everybody knows, but it's all because of proper diet and things like that, you see. Even though I have to admit, our diet is not what it should be. And now they don't call them veggies no more. You see? So these sons of God, when they went down and got into a little trouble, because, they were naive and ignorant about the ways of the world, and when these men came up to them and was going to give them a hard time, they just tried to defend themselves. And they found out that by one or two knocks, they could knock these guys down. They were just like a piece of cheese, you see? And so when the sons of God receiving the spirit of the devil, just like the sons of Cain and stuff, they went and took all the wives they chose. There was no one that could stand up against them. You see? What God designed to be good in their strength to labor, get out there and get the work done for good, Satan turned it to make it be used for evil. So that's why they were mighty men, men of renown, men of war. These evil men whom God didn't bless, because remember, it says of Cain that the earth will not yield up her strength to you. Remember? So the descendants of Cain were weak people. But God's people were strong. So when God's people went to evil, sure, they could just wipe out the sons of Cain easy. They were just pushovers to them, you see. And they took their wives, but they had evil children that were mighty because they had the strength of their fathers, you see. So God repented himself, he made man, and destroyed the world. That's the way we understand the story in a greater light today than what Sister White explained it, or Brother Hart explained it, or Sister Rowland, or Brother Roden, you see. But these people, this beast here, depicts the time when the boundary was is that man, the sons of God, surpassed mercy. They went over their boundaries, they came down to the valleys. Even Sodom was a valley, you see. Always the valley represents iniquity, you see. And then what happened is that there was a period of time when they were religio-political, professing themselves to be wise. Romans 1:20 says, you see, that while knowing God, they do the things that God doesn't do. They made the image of God like to that of corruptible man, four-footed beast, things like that. So God finally sent the flood in to destroy them, you see. Now, today, in our religious world, I'm going to stop right here on this. Because we gave you it says as seen in 1931. So which means that it's seen a different way in our day, you see. William Miller's message presented a doctrine the whole world had never even understood before. In William Miller's day, they thought when he died he went to heaven and hell. But his message, like fire, told of a destruction, the water, which we know the water represents, the destruction of water is the flood. The flood was a flood of truth, that in 1844, 1843, the Christ was coming again. Simple enough? That's what the first angel's message presented. Now, seeing that almost all the world believed in this message, because William Miller's message went throughout the whole world, when the second message came, Babylon is fallen, the world was already covered with the truth. It was a seed. And William Miller's movement, all those Bible-believing people came together as one organization, a mountain with fire, because they were Bible students from all over the world. And they were cast into the sea. And no one could stand up against the doctrine of the Millerite movement, the second angel's message. And their message was Babylon is fallen. Now, but Sister White came with the message of star. See, a star symbolizes a light which is beyond our sun, a higher light, which we know is the sun, but it's so small, it seems small, but yet it's a great light. You see? Sister White came with the third angel's message, the trumpet, and she was the one that the star came from heaven and gave light to all the rivers. This is the ministry. You see? If it had not been for Sister White's writings, we would have not have known the characters and the controversy as it really existed. These are just facts. You see? Without Sister White's writings, we would have never known what happened to Paul when he went to Jerusalem. The Bible doesn't tell us. The Bible doesn't tell us in detail why Saul did the things he did, or why Judas did the things he did. But the spirit of prophecy, this star, you see, does tell us. Now, after Sister White's message, we know that they went back into Egypt and everything after the symbol of Babylon, because it shows on the beast chart here, one of these heads is SDA, isn't it? Now, when the Church Federation in 1930 and 1960, the one of the heads was healed, SDA's right here, and it's called Mystery Babylon. Sister White says, anyone coming teaching the church is Babylon is false. That's what they use against you, the Adventists, you see. But I teach the church is Babylon, SDA. But the reason of it is, I show also that in 1930 the church was purified, wasn't it? Our remnant was taken out. Right? Sister White says the reason why it would not be called Babylon because God will purify the church. Simple enough. Do we believe in 1930 the church was purified by taking a remnant out? The chart shows the Church Federation. We know the woman is sitting on all the heads now. According to this chart, all the church, even SDA is a part of the World Council of Churches and all these different things and co-ops with them. You see? Church Federation. 7 women should take hold of one man, saying we get our own bed, our own apparel, just let us be called by their name. They don't have inspiration. This is Mystery Babylon. And next, the woman's picture set on the beast. And we're almost coming to that now, you see? So the charts speak plainly. In 1930, it says of Revelation 13, and all the world wondered after the beast, whose names were not written in the Lamb's Book of Life from the foundation of the world. So who wondered after the beast? The ones who didn't have the spirit of prophecy. Simple enough, right? Do you see that point? Well, only Brother Hannah knew what this composite beast is. The Adventist Church teaches this whole beast is the papacy. That's what the Adventist Church teaches. We teach only the head was the papacy. This beast represents all the modern-day descendants of the Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. At the feet of the bear, body of the leopard, mouth of the lion. You see? It was what? Skinned? Or what? No, I don't remember any statement like that. You see, this beast was revealed in 1930. It revealed what the modern-day world was symbolized. You see? In other words, the papacy is not the beast. The papacy is one of the types of theology, the world theologies, you see. But it showed that all the world doctrines and theologies were all false. Whether Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever, it was all false. All the world wondered at this beast, meaning they didn't know what it really was. In 1930, Vatican City, the wound was healed. Who rose up and protested against that?
you're thinking that there was a teaching taken out.
Yeah, what is right. You see, the church was, as I say, was separated. The true Adventists who came out as Davidians, you see, and the ones who didn't come out, well, they weren't true Adventists. That's what I'm saying. But the church is going to be purified in this final round because, see, God's been gathering wave sheep. See, that's why I teach that, for instance, this represents Sister White's message. Because we know after her came the shepherd's rod message, which represents the spirit of prophecy. It was on the fourth day God made the sun and the moon, right? And on the fourth day, the sun and the moon gave light unto the third day, the second day, and the first day. Because you couldn't see. We, as human beings, would not have been able to see what God had created if it had not been for the sun and the moon, and the stars also. You see? So this represents the spirit of prophecy. But notice it says that the third of all these was darkened. Brother Hana says in the trumpet track that the third, meaning that like the third of the trees were burned, always represents the wicked. The devil cast out, took out a third of the angels from heaven. That's what it symbolizes, the wicked. Now, here's the point. God's telling us today we're the most wicked people on the face of the earth. That's what God's telling us. You're familiar with Zechariah 13? It says, the sword shall be against the shepherd, and the man is my fellow. Brother Hobb was the shepherd. The man is my fellow was Brother Roden. And it says, and I will turn my hand upon the little ones, which is Sister Roden's message, right? We're the little ones. We're the children of the kingdom. And it says, and 2/3 should be cut off and die, which that's the hypocrites and sinners. And it says, well, notice this, symbolic language, I will leave the third part to the fire. We're the third part. We're the wicked. But if we acknowledge this in truth and realize that the fire we're going through is the truth that God's telling us, saying, look, you're wicked people. Brother Hart says, as soon as God can get a group of people that can realize that they're nothing and God's everything, and as soon as we learn the worst of our cases, then God's going to do something for us. You see? When we can go out here and preach truth because it's truth and not be puffed up and lifted up about it, then God's going to do something for us. Now, it says of Zachariah, it says of Joshua, is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Now, when you're a brand, you're pretty well burnt to a crisp, aren't you? You see, Joshua's not depicted as anybody that's holy. Sister White says that he can't match Satan. He can't reject what Satan's saying about him because he's a sinner, and he knows it. All he can do is plead the promises of God. That's what we have to have this message for, to be able to combat Satan with. Now, the fourth angel's message was Victor Haddock. Now notice, this little guy here is saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. And look, each one of these angels points back, right? They're all pointing back. Every message that comes is always to point back. So I point back to Sister Rose's message. And I reveal things in her message that we never understood. And Brother Rose and Brother Hodges, and Sister White and William Miller, you see. Here's the seventh angel. This represents the message now, you see. And the seventh angel points back to this amalgamation. That's an amalgamated beast-looking thing there. And God destroyed the world the first time because of the amalgamation, right? But this is symbolic of something. God's trying to prove a point to us today.